Hello. Hi, I think this is working. This is the advice stream. Hello, I am Jeremy International. We are coming to you live. We're doing something a little different from my basement where I have been meaning to reorganize my video game collection for a very long time and haven't made the time to do it. So I figured, why not do that now? We can do some body doubling if you want to, if there's a project that you have at home you've been meaning to do and you haven't had the time to, then I always do that. Then go ahead and do that now. I'm trying out a new mic, so let me know how I sound, everybody. Hey, Eichel. How's it going? It's a little awkward. I'm realizing now because my camera is here, but my screen is down. But I see that Eichel is here. So yeah, instead of playing video games today, I'm just going to do some work. I'm going to do some organizational work. That's the fun thing for someone like me to do. And we can talk while we do it. Maybe we'll go over some highlights from my collection. And you can share if you're working on a particular project. Let me know what that is. And we'll see how it goes. It's going to be awkward and weird. But that's usually how things are when you do them for the first time. So let's just lean into the awkwardness and get some work done. I hope everyone's had a good week. I've had a week that has been sufficient because it is a week, and that's 7 days. And so if you're coming in, say hi. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube. We're live at JeremyInternational.com. If you would like, hang on a second. If you'd like to seek advice during the stream today, you can head on over to JeremyInternational.com and submit. There's a contact form at the very bottom. You can submit a question that way. You can also leave tips if you feel so inclined. And every more or less episode previously of the advice stream is there, so you can even check out old episodes if you'd like to. I have a blog that I contribute to very occasionally, but I think there's some good content in there as well. Why am I out of breath? But hi everybody. So let's we're just gonna kind of get some work done. This is gonna be weird because I'm gonna be like turning away from everybody. But can I maybe make this a little lower so you can see more? Does that work? Not really. So I'm just going to start pulling stuff off the shelves. We can go over cool stuff that I see. And one of the things that takes up a lot of space in this area are board games that I've already set aside. We don't play a whole lot of board games. There was, that thing where everybody was buying lots of board games and playing lots of board games a few years ago. We don't really do that much anymore. So I don't know. Maybe I'll give or donate or see if anyone wants to take those at some point. Because we're not really doing that much these days. And I also have a really big movie collection. You guys ever see Vibes with Cyndi Lauper and Jeff Goldblum? Such a good movie. If you haven't seen it, check out Vibes. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere or what. It was never on Blu-ray. This is just a DVD. It's got Peter Falk in it, and it is a wonderful action but funny and like kind of weirdly like a horror movie at the end because all kinds of weird stuff happens. So good. Cyndi Lauper, Jeff Goldblum. What year is this? 1988. Peter Falk. Vibes. Shout out in the chat if you've ever seen Vibes before. It's a goodie if you can find it. What other cool things do I have movie-wise? I have a whole bunch of Criterion. I'm probably also, my local comic book store started selling used DVDs and Blu-rays, and I think I might kind of pare down. I'm all about physical media, but I think I got too much. So I think I might pare down my collection a little bit and see if maybe they want to buy it or give me some trade-in, because it's a really cool comic book store. They have lots of other cool things that I would like to have. I don't feel like I need so many movies these days, Not that I trust streaming or whatever, but this is also one of my faves, Phantom of the Paradise. You guys ever see Phantom of the Paradise? Musical horror movie. Super cool. Check out Famine of Paradise if you haven't seen that before. But how's everybody going? Eichel's in the chat. He says, do you still watch via DVDs? I love some physical media too. I still do watch DVDs from time to time, especially when it's something that's not streaming or it's not on a streaming service that I care to pay for. That I'll, usually if you hunt around a little bit, you can find a DVD or a Blu-ray of a movie that'll cost you as much as it costs for 1 month of a streaming service. So if there's just one thing you want to watch, one or two things, then just go buy it and don't, contribute to this streaming nonsense that we're all dealing with. And the problem with streaming also is, the stuff changes all the time. That, a company's streaming service will lose the rights to stream something, and then you thought you had it, and then you don't anymore. But if you have it on physical media, then you're all set. These are really cool. These are Steelbox Lord of the Rings movies, all in 4K. Really pretty boxing for those. I'm definitely going to keep those. And streaming in real 4K isn't as straightforward as you might think. So if you really want those really special movies, if you want a really high quality version of them, then sometimes you gotta have the disc. Eichel says, I do not trust companies with streaming. Me neither, Eichel. But I don't have a DVD player, just a PS3. PS3 is a great DVD player. That's all you need. My only DVD player is my in 4K player too is my PS5. You can't get better than that, and it's a multitasker, so that's even better because you can play games on it and you can watch movies on it. Why wouldn't you want anything better than that? That's all you need. Eichel says, with downloaded games, companies just straight up remove games from the store. Yeah, I know. Yeah, those are all the extended editions, Eichel. Hey, Jugsy's here. I know, Jugsy. I'm in my basement. I've decided to, I've been putting off reorganizing my video game and various other media shelf. Why am I out of breath? And talking and moving at the same time, I guess, is beyond what I can do. And so I figured that for tonight's show, Oldman can't join us tonight. So for our show tonight, let's just do this project I've been meaning to do. If you, Jugsy, Eichel, anybody else have a project at home you've been meaning to do and haven't been able to make time to do it, why don't you go do that project now too? We can do it together. We can do some body doubling. We can work together. It's always easier to get stuff done if you got a friend who's doing stuff too. I need to take a minute and catch my breath. I was running around a lot, getting ready. I waited to the last minute to get everything set up, and this is a very different setup than what I normally have. And so I haven't really had a time to catch my breath. I'm partially inspired by Oldman's library, Jugsy, yes. I don't know why I'm out of breath. I live such a healthy lifestyle. Everything works right in my body, so I don't know why I'm having such a hard time. But I figured I'll go through my collection. We can talk about some of the cool stuff that I have. And then we can, put it back together in an organized, nice fashion, which I'm very excited to do now that I finally got started doing it. It's not a surprise to anyone. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I have all Star Trek on whatever media is available. Enterprise came out on Blu-ray initially. Star Trek Enterprise was the first Star Trek series that was shot in HD. So that was DVD ready from the beginning. But Deep Space Nine and Voyager are only available on DVD. They never got a remaster, although Next Generation did. Jugsy says, I'm working for the man. That's my project right now. Well, Jugsy, because you're like in Australia or something, right? So it's probably the middle of your day. Wait, is it the middle of tomorrow? Is it Tuesday where you are, Jugsy? That's weird. Talking to you from Tuesday? Is that possible? Is that how it works? I don't know. Time zones. It's very confusing to me. Here are all of my HD remaster next generation Blu-rays. If you're going to watch next generation, this is really the way to do it. Although Paramount, who streams these, is streaming the remastered version, so they look really great on Paramount Plus too. Whoa, Jugsy's on Tuesday. Well, Jugsy, if it's Tuesday, how does the stream go? Does it go good? Do I make any mistakes? Do I have a lot of people come by? If it's Tuesday where you are, you know how the show goes already, right? Isn't that how that works? But I know that's not how it works. So yeah. So kind of picking through movies here just to make room for video games. I am going to do a massive pare down of my movie collection though. Because I should, because I don't need all those anymore. Jugsy says it goes well, but you don't pull the box set off the top shelf on the far right. Trust me. Are you talking about this? This is actually something I've been meaning to set up for a while. It's a collector's edition of like the Castlevania collection for the Switch. So it's got all of the Nintendo and Game Boy. No, not Game Boy. I don't think Game Boy. Maybe there is Game Boy. Nintendo and like 16-bit, so Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis Castlevania games on it for the Switch, and it lights up and has this cool little like shadow box in it. I would like to find a way to set that up and plug it in so I can see how cool and light up it is. But I won't pull it off the shelf today, Jugsy, for your sake, so that you don't get too stressed out. Here's another part of my collection that this is a little damaged. The Thing, if you've also watched the show for a long time, you know that this is my favorite horror movie of all time. John Carpenter, 1982, right? 1982, I think, or 81. Best horror movie of all time, in my opinion. This is a 4K, and it's got it on Blu-ray. And then it also has the, 2011 prequel, which isn't as great as the original because nothing is, but is still pretty good. But if you haven't seen The Thing, watch The Thing. Learn as little about it as you can before you put it on. Because if you don't know what's going on in The Thing, then it makes it all the better. Thanks, Jugsy. This is an old shirt. It's starting to get holes in it. I don't buy a lot of clothes for myself. I just don't like to buy clothes in general because I get something that I like and I wear it until it falls apart. But the problem then is that all my clothes fall apart at the same time. So all of my t-shirts that fit me really well are all falling apart. And I don't know where to go because it's been so long that the companies that made all of these shirts are gone. So I don't know where to go to buy t-shirts that fit me the same way. I'm shaped kind of weird because I'm tall and I'm thin and I'm like 75% torso. So anything that like fits me good around the shoulders or in the chest is also like way too short. So finding clothes that fit me, especially t-shirts, is hard to do. But when I find them, I buy lots of them. And then wait till they fall apart. And then many years later, I'm back in the same boat again. Okay, what are we doing next? Let's have a plan here. I apologize, I keep dipping out of the screen. Oh, here's another couple really cool movies. I'm a sucker for this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've been listening to the soundtrack to this for a long time. It's The Wiz. I was in The Wiz in high school. I was the Tin Man. It was the biggest role in a musical I've ever had. And the music from this is so good. And this is a great movie. Michael Jackson's in it, just as a little bit of content warning. Very young Michael Jackson. But man, The Wiz. If you like musicals, if you like the singing and the dancing, you can't do better. You can't do better than The Wiz. Anybody out there in the group ever seen Life Force? This is a movie right here. It's about like space vampires, And the queen of them, they're aliens, but they're vampires, is this woman who's just naked, just like totally naked the whole movie. But it's a pretty good horror movie. It's got really great practical, because it's from the 80s, so it has to be practical. It's got really great practical effects in it. And is cheesy and scary in all the ways that you want a movie like that to be. Highly, highly recommend. What else do we have here that's cool? Event Horizon, also another classic horror movie. If you haven't seen Event Horizon, see Event Horizon. Speaking of space and horror movies from space, this is really cool. I got these like a year ago. These are 4K remasters of the Universal. I got two of them, of the Universal horror movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. All of these movies, every single one of these, is amazing and holds up really well. If you like horror movies, they're beautiful and they're creepy and eerie, especially The Mummy with Boris Karloff. That's my favorite. Find a way to see those. They're probably streaming somewhere. But like they're old and they're kind of like overplayed, and they're one of those things that like people like revere for whatever reason, but they kind of deserve that credit, because all of them are very well made, very beautiful but creepy movies. My favorite piece of trivia about those movies is the original Mummy with Boris Karloff, and then also the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi. The music that plays over the credits is just Swan Lake. They didn't have the budget or the time or the care to compose something original, so the music that plays over the opening credits to those movies is the part when the swans come out from Swan Lake, which I think is really really funny. Because I don't think of Swan Lake as being really that creepy, but I guess it kind of is. And then when you put it into that context, it's totally creepy. Jugsy says, Event Horizon is one of the only space horrors I don't like. I just feel a little too out there. It just feels a little too out there and shock and horror for me to stay immersed. I do love the setting, though. I get that. And, and like Event Horizon is very much a product of its time. It's a very 90s horror movie in the way that I don't know if I can describe it more than that, but it just feels very, very of its time. It feels very dated. But I'm from that time, and I remember when that movie came out and being way too scared to see it in the movie theater. So maybe I'm a little biased. What's another good space horror movie? Because we were just, me and Fred Undead were just talking about this yesterday about horror in outer space. Outer space is terrifying by itself, and then when you like set a horror story in there, it's so creepy. I've tried to play the first Dead Space game like many times and couldn't get very far because I was just too scared. Here's another musical that's really important to me. This is a judgment-free zone, everybody. Is A Chorus Line. The movie of A Chorus Line is actually pretty terrible, but the show, when I was 12 or 13 maybe, my parents bought my sister and I seasons passes to the Chrysler Center, which is like a big, it's like a where Broadway shows on tour go in the Hampton Roads area where I grew up. And I saw A Chorus Line and it changed my life forever. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a performer or an actor or a dancer or whatever. And it's a big deal. That show is a big deal for me in general. And the movie is fine. It's not great. Michael Douglas is in it for some reason. I don't know why. Jugsy says, you got to include the water ones, Leviathan and Underwater. I saw Underwater not too long ago. I haven't seen Leviathan in a million years. But Underwater I liked a lot. I kind of went into Underwater thinking that I wasn't going to like it, that it was going to be dumb. But it was really good. There's not really a lot of surprises in it, but it does give you this like underwater sense of dread, which is really cool and kind of unique. And it does that really well. What is this? Why is it stuck? Oh no. Ooh. Oh boy. Well, that's not good. One of the things, this isn't particularly rare or expensive. Oh no, it's for the Atari 5200? I didn't know that. I don't have a way to play Atari 5200 games. I have a complete box version of Star Trek. I thought it was for the 2600. This is the thing that sucks about naming all of your different machines just random nonsensical numbers, is it's easy to get confused. I can play 2600 and 7800 Atari games, but I don't have the ability to play 5200 games. I've never played this before, but I kind of thought that I would have the ability to when I wanted to. One of the consistent things about my collection is I go out of my way to get complete in-box Star Trek games because I love Star Trek. And this is one of the ones that I was really happy to have. I've never played it, and I have just discovered now, live on camera, that I cannot, unless I buy an Atari 5200 and find a way to get it to work on my modern TV setup, which sounds like another project for me to do. So maybe that is something I need. I just got a Sega Saturn. I think we talked about that last week or the week after, and it's going to be a little complicated, but I can get that to work. But an Atari 5200 is probably going to be a little more challenging. But I don't have any way to play this. I thought it was a 2600 game. Oh well. That's the trick with collecting for systems that are distinguished from each other just by random collections of numbers, and then having a brain like mine where I can't remember numbers for more than 2 seconds, is that I couldn't remember 5200 is not 28 or 7200, and so I don't have the ability to play that. That's a bummer. It's a real bummer. Yeah, Jugsy says time for 5200. Yeah, it is. It is time. I'm sure I can buy a 5200 cheap. Those Atari consoles aren't super high in demand, and they're not really ever a lot of money. The problem, of course, is going to be how do I get it to work with my setup, because it's not going to have any kind of connection that's going to work with my TV. So I'll have to figure out something for that. Let me show you something that is cool though. Hold on, everyone. I'll be right back. This is something else that I got fairly recently. This is called an Atari 2600 Plus. You can see it here. This is a new system from Atari. It's got HDMI on it, and this will play 2600 games and 7800 games. To give you a little bit of context, 2600 was one of the first video game consoles people could buy. So it's very, very basic, but had some surprisingly cool games for it, like Adventure, for example, which I might stream someday now that I have that system. And then the 7800 is comparable to a Nintendo. So the graphics capabilities, that was Atari's attempt to compete with Nintendo in the mid 80s during, the heyday of the NES. And there's lots and lots of cool games. I just started to buy some games for the 7800. It's a really good way to play classic Atari arcade games on a console, because that was the first time the hardware was capable of doing that. So that'll play 26 and 7800 games, but it won't play 52. So I don't have the ability to play that Star Trek game. And that's a bummer. But oh well. Hey, Fred Undead, welcome to the stream. I hope your evening has gone well thus far. I'm making a mess down here in the basement, but it will be worth it because everything will be tidier afterwards. You can't kind of see on the floor, but I'm making piles. Speaking of 7800, this is a game I've always wanted to play for the 7800. It's called Karateka, I think is how I pronounce that. It's like one of the first fighting games It's supposed to be one of those essential games. You can see what 7,800 games look like, and they look almost identical to 2,600 games. That's why there's some backwards compatibility, because they're the same size. This is 26. This is 78. I mean, 7,800, 2,600. And I'd open that Star Trek box to show you what a 52 looks like, but I don't know if I can. I don't know. Is it sealed? Has it never been opened? Well, now I definitely can't open it. This is a game from 1983 that's never been opened. And since I can't play it anyways, I might as well leave it sealed. That's cool. I had no idea. It's never been opened before. It's in pretty good shape. Anyways, I don't have a lot of questions. Thanks, Fred Undead. Yeah, show and tell's fun, right? I got lots of things to show and tell. I keep dodging and weaving out of the camera, though. This is one of the first games we played on this stream, is Holy Diver on the Famicom, and is really good, surprisingly enough. It's a Castlevania style, very Castlevania style, because they borrow a lot of the same sprites. Only released for the Famicom, never came to the US, but there's probably some ways to play it through emulation. But if you're looking for a good retro classic style platformer, check out Holy Diver. Real good one. For those that haven't been following from the beginning, a big part of my collection, which we're going to go through, is going to be Famicom games. If you're unfamiliar, the Famicom was, what is this? The Famicom was the NES that was released in Japan first. It's short for Family Computer. And they got a lot of games we got, but they got a lot of games we never got. Oh, well, this is cool. I should play this sometime too. This is Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Rondo for Blood on the PS4. Really nice package. I don't remember getting that, but here it is anyways. It comes in a pretty box. I'm a big, Castlevania and Metroid, it's a similar type of game. I'm a big fan of both of those. So finding games like that, but finding ways to conveniently play them in a modern environment is something I'd like to do. Here is probably one of the more valuable games in my collection, is Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation. We should stream this sometime too, because this is a very good game. It's the green label. Most PlayStation games, if you can see, have black labels, but it's a green one, so it's a little bit less. But my PlayStation collection isn't huge, but it's pretty good. We got Resident Evil, the director's cut. We got Chrono Cross. Of course, we got Metal Gear Solid. And Heart of Darkness, which is made by the same people that did Out of This World, which we've streamed a few times, and is one of my favorite games. Another one of the more valuable games in my collection is the original Silent Hill. We tried to play this a little while ago, and it didn't do too well for me because it is scary, and I'm a chicken. So we didn't play it a lot. But a black label Silent Hill is a pretty rare game. And another PlayStation game that I have, which is also really good, is Star Trek Invasion. I'd said before that one of the primary focuses of my collection is complete in box Star Trek games whenever I can get them. So that's another one. And I didn't even know that Star Trek for the Atari 5200 is sealed. So I'll never play that. Another rare game in my collection is Eternal Darkness on the GameCube. This is a pretty hard to find and pretty valuable on the collector's market game. I don't buy stuff because I buy games because I want to play them. But sometimes if I see something that I know is hard to get and it's a good deal, I will grab it. And this is one of those games. What else? What else? Okay, pulling more games off the shelf. And then we've got some Sega Master System games. The Master System, if anyone saw the episode where we played Ghostbusters, the business simulator, Ghostbusters is one of those. When I was a kid, I'm the youngest of a really big family. And when I was a kid, either from games that my parents, for toys that my parents bought my brother and I, or toys that we got hand-me-downs, we had almost every Star Wars figure, that almost the whole line. I've looked at guides and can remember that we had all of those. A few years ago, I got all that stuff together and everyone in my family was fine with me doing it, and I sold it all on eBay and made a decent chunk of money. But one figure that's super rare, that wasn't, I can't find anywhere, but goes for big bucks, he's like a headhunter. He's like this yellow and green guy, and he's got long arms. And this is the little accessory he came with. And it's like, that figure goes for like $500 alone, out of the package and everything. And I desperately want to find it so I can sell it and make that money. And I don't know where it is. I can't find it anywhere. It's somewhere, because my family never throws anything away. But I know I had it because this is the thing that he came with. And I could probably sell this for like $50. But I want to keep it for the day when I find that figure, so that I can make all the money. And it's so frustrating to know that it is somewhere. It's in my house. It's in my parents' house. It's in my brother's house. It's somewhere. And I want it because I want to sell it. And I can use that money to buy video games. This is a game we tried to play and I never got back around to it. Typing of the Dead for the Dreamcast. This is Japanese only, but the typing is in English. And it's really easy to hack a Dreamcast so it can play. It can be region unlocked. My Dreamcast is American, so it can't play this out of the box. I need to get around to that one of these days, so that I can play that, because I would love, everyone knows I'm a terrible typer, but I would love to have a chance to play that anyways. This is another really great Castlevania collection for the Switch. This is all of the handheld Castlevania games. So Harmony of Dissonance and Aria of Sorrow, or just like, those are famously good Castlevania games. They came out for the Game Boy Advance. Those are also pretty expensive to buy on the collector's market. I have a couple of them in my collection, but not a lot. Yeah, but if the Castlevania, I mean, there's so many great games for the Game Boy Advance. It's my favorite console, handheld at least. What do we have here? Oh, here's another movie. If you've never seen, you should check it out. Is Dragon Slayer. No one talks. Everyone's sleeping on this movie, and it is such a good fantasy movie. It's so unexpected. It has a lot of weird twists and turns to it, and everybody should watch. Everybody should watch Dragon Slayer. It's probably streaming on something too. But if you haven't seen it, go see it. What's going on in the chat? Jugsy says, hey, Jerem, what's your all-time #1 unicorn game you'd like to find? That is a good question. Chrono Trigger or Earthbound for the Super Nintendo are games that I've had opportunities to buy in the past, and I didn't. And now they're beyond, even bad condition versions of those games are beyond any amount of money I would spend on a video game. So I'd say one of those two would be pretty high up on my list. There are other ways to play those games. And in fact, I have, where did it go? Pause for effect. I have somewhere. Chrono Trigger for the Super Famicom, but I can't read Japanese. But these are games that there are other ways I could play them. I mean, Earthbound is on the Switch. You can play it that way, but playing on the original hardware would be so great. But those games have gone beyond any kind of realistic budget I have for playing games. What is that, Fred Undead? I don't know if hard to find, LOL. I don't know what that means, Fred Undead. Oh, Xenogears. Yeah, Xenogears is actually is not cheap on the collector's market, but is on the upward end of the amount of money I would pay for a game. I'm never gonna pay more than $100. That's the maximum I would ever pay for a video game. And you can sometimes find Xenogears for right in that price range if you're patient and you're lucky. So that one is doable with a lot of patience. But Chrono Trigger or Earthbound to look at a game like that on eBay costs you $400. So they've just gone so far beyond anything that's reasonable. On the list of games that I own that I also don't have the ability to play. Uh-oh. Did I lose my live stream? Is everyone still there? Can everybody hear me? I think I'm still live. Let me know in the chat I think I lost my connection there for a minute. Let me know if everyone can still hear me. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula for a Sega CD. I do not own a Sega CD. I do not have the ability to play this game. But I love this movie. And I like to buy, there were a million video game tie-ins for it, and I like to buy the ones that I can find. And maybe someday I'll have a Sega CD. And we can play together. Thanks, Fred Undead. Okay, that was weird. Maybe it was just an issue with my Twitch browser. This is also cool collector's edition. This is Mega Man, the Wily Wars, which is like, it was like a 16-bit remaster of, I believe, just maybe the first two Mega Man games. But there's a really cool, what is that called? Lenticular cover on that. Nice collector's edition there. This is from Retrobit. Mega Man games are super fun, but they are so hard to play and to get anywhere with that I don't usually spend a lot of time playing those games. Here are my loose Sega Genesis games. Oh, a game that I've been meaning to stream for a while. This was on my list, not because it's expensive, but just because it's hard to get, is Haunting starring Poltergeist. This is a fun Genesis game. We'll probably stream that at some point. Where you play a ghost and you have to kind of go around and possess different inanimate objects to get them to, solve puzzles or whatever. So that's a good one. It's fun. This is a cool thing. The battery's probably dead on it, but this is a little handheld Super Mario Brothers game. I don't know if you've seen these around before. There's a Zelda one too that I have in my office upstairs that I use as a clock because it has a clock, but this has Super Mario Brothers. I think it has Mario Brothers, and it has not what we got in America as Mario Brothers 2, but the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2, which we got in the US as the Lost Levels. Getting some messages coming through. Let's have a look. Okay. And I have a lot of Switch games. What else do we have here? Asteroid City, Wes Anderson. That's a good one. I really like this movie a lot. That's not Criterion, though. It probably will be. I think they put all of his stuff in the collection. What's everybody's take on the Criterion Collection? I'm generally for it, although sometimes I feel like it is a little pretentious, to be honest. But overall, I am pro Criterion Collection. So many. I got a lot of Switch games. So many Switch games. Anything particularly cool in here we should talk about? Speaking of games that look really great but are so hard and miserable to play, is Cuphead. Anybody play Cuphead? This game looks great and it's super fun for a little while, but it is too hard, for me at least. And it makes me miserable when I try to play it, so I just don't. But it's cool that they came out with a physical collection for that. What else do we have that is cool in here? More Criterion games. I mean, movies. This is the collector's edition of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Really great game. The only reason I still have my Xbox 360 is because this was a digital download only for that. And I love this game so much that I wanted to have a way to play it. But now we're in an era where the current and previous version of the Xbox can't play all previous Xbox games, so I'm glad that I kept it, because there are games that I want to play that only play on that. I know I'm out of the camera, but I'm still talking. I'm still here, everybody. I'm still here, everybody. Oh boy, am I making a mess. What else do we got that's cool? Just kind of moving some stuff out of the way to make more space. This is a really cool thing that I have in my collection that I will show everybody here. These are complete original Pokemon games, green and blue, and Japanese, and red and yellow. I'm not going to play these because I don't read Japanese, but they're surprisingly affordable, even complete versions, and the box art is just so cool. So I've got all of those. That's kind of a highlight of my collection, I think. If you can see that. And here are some more boxed Star Trek games, Next Generation for the Game Boy, and this is 25th anniversary for the Game Boy. All cool stuff. Do I have more? I do. Let's go over all of my Star Trek stuff first. Super Nintendo, Next Generation, complete. And Bridge Simulator. This is a game we should stream. This is a great game. Bridge Simulator for the Super Nintendo. And Deep Space Nine is not as good, we'll say. We'll be polite. It's pretty terrible. It's just a platformer. It's surprisingly not a lot going on for a Star Trek game. And then I have a bunch of... for a while, I was going to get into collecting Nintendo in-box, but I have decided against that because that is a very expensive hobby. But I have a few. I got Bubble Bobble. These are all original Nintendo games, complete. Maniac Mansion Classic. The original Final Fantasy. Look at that. Look how cool that is. And Remote Control, which was a game show on MTV in the 80s that I was a big fan of. We should probably stream this game at some point too. And then I have one black box complete Nintendo game. All of the launch Nintendo games, came in these black boxes. This is Gyromite, which is not a great game. But I have one, it's pretty cool to have that. Gyromite was made to work with the robot, Robbie is not his name, that the original Nintendos in America came with. And then two more complete boxed Star Trek games. Boy, I'm not even halfway done and I want to give up already. I'm done with this mission because I'm tired. But let's keep going. We're going to keep going for the sake of keeping going. This is a complete Super Nintendo game. It's like Mickey's Adventures in Disneyland or something. If you can see that, if anyone can read whatever language that is. It looks like it's Chinese, doesn't it? Is it Japanese? I don't know. Probably Japanese. I haven't played this game, but it looks cool from the pictures on the box. And then I don't have a big GameCube collection. I showed you Eternal Darkness before, but this is the rest of my GameCube collection. I'm just going to put these up if anyone wants to see. The Lord of the Rings games, movie tie-ins were really great on the GameCube. So that's all I got for the GameCube. Would love to get more, but you got to make decisions. You can't buy everything. Who's got the money for that? What's this? Oh, this is cool. This is a and there's a sequel to it too. This is a new Game Boy game. This came out just a few years ago, and its sequel, it's called Shapeshifter. And I think that's so cool that people are still making games for the Game Boy. New game. It would be fun to stream this too. I've heard really good things about both of these. Okay. Probably the most, and the game's not actually in here because I was playing it, but this is a complete version of Metroid 2 for the GameCube. This is probably the most expensive, like nothing's worth anything. But if I wanted to sell all of this, I'd probably get the most amount of money from selling this one. Metroid 2 for the GameCube, for the Game Boy, such a good game, especially when you consider how limited the Game Boy was. They do such a great job with that. I don't have any boxed Nintendo 64 games, but this is my 64 collection. I don't think there's anything particularly shocking or interesting in here. I'm just looking through it real quick. And it's all the usual, nothing particularly spicy. All the usual Nintendo 64 games people tend to have. But I do have Jeopardy for the 64. I always have a good time playing Jeopardy on the stream, so maybe we'll get around to that someday too. And these are my Famicom Disk System games. I don't have many of these, but I do have a functional disk system. The Nintendo was going to release, have I shown people these before? This is super cool. Nintendo was going to release, and they did in Japan, like a floppy disk game system because you could put more information on it, and they were cheaper. There was a microchip shortage in the 80s globally, and so they started to switch over to this, but then the chip shortage resolved itself, and they went back to just selling cartridges, and the disc system never came to the United States. But this is Castlevania on a floppy disk. And the great thing about the discs, first off, is you can write to them, so you can save. The Castlevania that we got in the US doesn't have the ability to save. And you can hold a lot more data. So the disc system games, like a lot of the really big, and by big I mean like world inside world big. Like Zelda, for example, came out on the disc system first. And I have that somewhere, don't I? Don't I have Zelda on the disc system? If I do, I don't know where it is. But I got, this is Castlevania. This is Castlevania 2. This is the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2, not the 2 we got here. This looks just like the first one, but it's a lot harder. And then Metroid. This is how I beat the original Metroid, was on the disc system, because it's got saves. So it's a lot easier. You don't have to start over every time. I mean, it's still hard, but you don't, you can take your time playing it, if that makes sense, because you can save it. I thought I had Zelda. Weird. Maybe I don't. Let's talk about Super Nintendo. Do I have anything particularly impressive for the Super Nintendo? No, not really. I got Super Mario RPG. This is a bigger deal these days than it used to be. I got Street Fighter 2, Jurassic Park. Not a lot that's particularly memorable for the Super Nintendo. I have, there's a few more games over here, though. Hold on. Oh, no, I got a couple really good games for the Super Nintendo. I forgot. I just recently got, because I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but the Star Wars games for the Super Nintendo were really good, so I recently finished those. I've got all 3 of those. Star Fox. We streamed this once. This is also a pretty rare game, Evo. I didn't like it. I couldn't get into it. But we streamed that a few months ago. And of course, my probably favorite single video game of all time is A Link to the Past. So that's my Super Nintendo collection. I have a few... Famicom, Super Famicom games. Most notably, Castlevania 4. Castlevania 4 is also one of those games that's kind of exceeded the amount of money I want to pay for it. Super Metroid for the Famicom also. So a few of those, not too many. And then we have let's go over Wii stuff, because there's a couple cool games I have for the Wii. Are they? I don't know. What do we got on the Wii that's really great? We've got WarioWare Smooth Moves. This game's wonderful, as are all of the WarioWare games. Endless Ocean, super chill if you're talking about like cozy games. Endless Ocean's a good cozy game. You're just swimming in the ocean looking for fish. Can't die, can't get hurt, can't get lost. None of the sharks or anything will try to take a bite out of you. Just very chill. I only have 2 Wii U games, because the Wii U. And that is Adventure Time, Explore the Dungeon, because I don't know, which is a great name. And then the NES Remix, which is lots of fun. Ooh. Where was I putting those just now? Here. And okay, so then we got NES. Anything in my NES collection that's worth going over? And there's a couple gems in here that I think are really terrific. Probably my favorite non-first party game for the original Nintendo is Solar Jetman. This is another one of those games people don't talk about enough. And if you want to get into some original Nintendo, you should check out Solar Jetman. It's like almost like a physics simulator. Like you're a spaceship and you go from planet to planet, and the planets have different gravity. you have a limited amount of fuel and you have to go around and explore and find pieces of your ship and tow them back. But, you know, the way that your ship works when you're towing another big piece of the spaceship is really different than if you're flying by yourself. It's really challenging. It's really hard, but it's one of those games that like never gives you more than what you can handle. And you figure out how the gravity works and you get your timing right, and then you're doing pretty great. Anything else in here that's particularly interesting? Not really. Not super really. This is a game I've been wanting to get into for a while that I haven't played. Everyone talks about this as being one of the best for the NES, is Destiny of an Emperor. It's kind of like a strategy. It's like a real-time strategy game, I think. So we'll probably stream that someday also. Most of these NES games were, you know, my NES games for when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure that this Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt was the pack-in for the Nintendo my brother and I paid for, saved up our money and paid for when we were kids. Hey, Amir. Amir says, I'll take your non-interesting NES games. I'll think about it, Amir. How's that? We'll think about it. But no, definitely not. Anything else particularly interesting? We've streamed a few of these before. Here's Kung Fu. We streamed Kung Fu once. I love Kung Fu. And then we got the original Metroid, Spy Hunter, all the classics. Then we've got our DS and 3DS games, especially all of the Pokemons. There are so many Pokemon games for the DS and the 3DS. So many. And I have all of them, of course. Have we talked about Pokemon an awful lot? When I was in my early 20s and I was sick in the hospital for long periods of time. This is before like smartphones or even like, you know, having the internet like be mobile. There was a Toys R Us near the hospital where I was. I was going to be there for a long time. So my mom, the story goes, my mom went to the Toys R Us and asked one of the people that worked there. She said, my son's in the hospital for a while and he's bored. What can I buy to keep him busy? But she didn't tell them how old I was. I think I was 20. I was 19 or 20. So she came back with a Game Boy Pocket, a Game Boy Color, and Pokemon Blue. And I had nothing to do, so I got super into it and have been pretty hardcore into Pokemon more or less ever since. And then a few years ago when I was recovering from having cancer, I decided to complete the Pokédex. So I did. I haven't kept up with it, so I don't have them all, but I went through every Pokemon game and transferred from game to game until I had all of them. And there was a while there where I was able to keep up with that. This is pretty cool. So, you know, the Game Boy Advance games came in paper boxes, which few people kept. And I have all of those games, so I bought these clear plastic cases that go on a shelf really nice that hold those games inside, just so I can display them a little bit better. In my opinion, these are the best. The Game Boy Advance Pokemon games, these are the best Pokemon games you can play. And if you're... it is possible to transfer Pokemon from these games to the Pokemon games on the Switch. So you can carry those Pokemon over. It is not easy. It takes a long time. It is a function of the games. It is built into the games. The folks at Nintendo wanted you to have the ability to do this. The trick, of course, is that in order to do that, there's a couple apps you have to have on a DS. And the DS store is closing down. So... if you don't have those apps when the store closes down, then installed on your DS, then you'll never be able to do that. So if that's something, if you have Pokemon in your Game Boy Advance games, or if you want to get into playing Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance but be able to transfer them, you need to go into the DS store before it shuts down. I don't think it's shut down yet, and get the Poke Transfer app and the Pokebank, because you'll need all of those to do that. Oh, yeah, Fred Undead's talking about Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Boy, is Hello Kitty Island Adventure a cozy game. I'm playing that with our daughter who's 3, and then when she goes away to school or goes to sleep for the night, I am playing it on my own. And Fred Undead's got the better idea and is just playing it by herself right away. Because that is a good, if you, it's in Apple Arcade, so it's free. I'm sure there's probably other ways to play it, but boy, Hello Kitty Island Adventure, everybody. Don't sleep on it. If you have the ability to play it, you should play it. It's like, I probably literally have it in my hand. It's like Animal Crossing, but better and kind of deeper and more complicated in a lot of ways. And I love it, and have been playing it a lot on my own. These are all of them? These are all of the DS. Just to put into context, how many games, Nintendo Pokemon games Nintendo made for the DS. These are all of the DS and 3DS Pokemon games. They really leaned in on that DS for Pokemon. Okay, so the next area we're going to work on, then, this is where we get into what I think is the coolest part, is my Famicom collection. Just to kind of put into a size comparison, Famicom games are kind of all over the place. It wasn't as regulated as what Nintendo did with the NES in America. But just to see, this is a NES game in the US. This is a Famicom game. So you can see how different in size and shape they are. The hardware on the inside is, of course, almost identical. There's really no different computing power, but you can't play Famicom games in an NES or vice versa, just because the games are shaped differently. Someday, I would like to get back into collecting these. I got into Famicom games pretty early in the pandemic, but then shipping got really expensive from Japan. And then the collector's market just in general has gotten out of control. So I've kind of laid off on collecting these. Gradius, classic NES, Gradius. But there's so many weird and cool games. This is, maybe other people won't think this is as insane as I do. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Altered Beast for the Nintendo. Altered Beast was before Sonic the Hedgehog was the launch game for the Sega Genesis. And it's great. It's not great, but it's a pretty decent game. On the Sega Genesis, it runs like garbage on a Nintendo, though, and it looks terrible. But look at this box art. Isn't that weird? Altered Beast on a Nintendo? I mean, that was the Sega game. Only in Japan, never came to the US. Looks terrible, plays terrible, but it's so weird that they got Altered Beast for the Nintendo in Japan. Because I think of that as being up there with Sonic the Hedgehog for being the, kind of pinnacle of Sega games. Anything else? Ghostbusters for the Famicom. This is the same as the Ghostbusters we played for the Sega Master System. It's the business simulator version of Ghostbusters that every kid that got it and thought they'd be running around busting ghosts must have been very upset about. A couple other things that I think are pretty cool. We're not going to go through every one of these. But, I'm sure lots of people know what we got as Super Mario Brothers 2 in the US isn't what was released as Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan. They did release it in Japan, and it's called Super Mario USA. If you can see there at the bottom. I think that's pretty funny. I think I showed before, I have the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2 for the Famicom disk system. Anything else here? I'm just going to start yanking these out, but is there anything else in here that's really cool? A few more I'll show. This is Legend of Zelda for the Famicom. Beautiful box, I think. And Goonies 2, but there's a Goonies 1 also. We only got Goonies 2 in the US. These are Capcom games. They're pretty good. Both of them. Although playing the first one's a little tricky because it was only released in Japan. But you can get Goonies 2 for the in English for the US Nintendo. And it's a good one. And no one's going to care about this but me, but I'm going to talk about it anyways because I'm on the show and I think I'm having a good time. Just to show the difference in Famicom boxes, this is a Famicom game, this big square box, and this is a Famicom game. They were all over the place in the size of the cartridges and the size of the boxes and stuff. The first round of Famicom games all came out in these really small boxes. Here's Xevious, Classic, Pac-Man, of course, Classic. Just the artwork for these boxes and the fact that they're so tiny is the big appealing thing for me for these. And I really would like to get back into collecting for that system. It's just, everything's expensive and I got other things to do with my money these days. But maybe someday I'll get back around to it. But just, look at this artwork. Isn't that cool? Little tiny box. It's like a pack of gum. What else do I have here that's particularly interesting? This is a game called Devil World, also not released in the US. There's lots of like Christian imagery and Satan and stuff in it. Nintendo was real cautious about that stuff in the 80s, so that never came here. Or maybe it did and they edited it out a lot. Oh, another game that never came to the US is Akira. Also, Famicom in Japan only release. Okay, so we should probably start thinking about a plan for what we're gonna do. I don't know if everyone can see, but up on here are all of my Switch games. And I think that I'm probably gonna need to create a second row for them. Which means that my Xbox and PlayStation 4 and 5 games are going to probably have to come down one. Let's do this. Let's take all of the PlayStation and Xbox stuff down. Is there anything particularly noteworthy from here? Probably not, as far as PlayStation stuff goes. I mean, a whole bunch of games. This is where we start to get to the point where my collection and Fred Undead's collection kind of start to mush together. This is another kind of rarer Castlevania game. This is Castlevania X for the PSP. I think Castlevania X came out for TurboGrafx maybe, and is also a game that has long been beyond my desire to play. I buy a lot of Call of Duty games. My brother and I play Call of Duty together a lot. I'm not a super big fan of those games, but it's fun to play with somebody, and sometimes that's kind of the only hangouty thing that my brother and I get to do. We don't live close together, and we both have really busy lives. So we make an effort to hang out together, and sometimes that comes in the form of playing Call of Duty, which I don't mind because Call of Duty can be fun occasionally, at least. Don't overdo it because, you know, there's a lot of guns involved. Any questions coming in? We haven't really done any advice questions yet. Amir says, were these cheap? I think older games in Japan were sold in used article stores very cheap. Yeah, most of those, Amir, most of those Famicom games I bought years ago and were not expensive at all, because I think the collector's market is different there than it is here, and you can sometimes get games a lot cheaper just because of the difference in the expectation around collecting. So I'm gonna start filling in that top shelf with the Switch games that have come down for whatever reason or don't have space for whatever reason. Switch. This is a game, by the way, and you can get it digitally because finding this physically is pretty hard to do. This is one of my favorite games for the Switch is Carry On. This is such a cool game. It's kind of like a Metroidvania, but you're like a amorphous blob that goes around eating people. And it's really fun and challenging and has all kinds of really cool, unique physics where you're like swinging around and stuff. It's a very unique gaming experience. And I really like that a lot. If anyone's looking for a game to play on their Switch, highly recommend Carry On. So normally I put these in alphabetical order. I'll get around to that someday, but I'm not going to really stress about that right now because I just want to start to get stuff back on the shelf here. Just for the sake of moving things along. I don't want to go to sleep with the giant mess. A giant mess down here, if you know what I mean. Also a big fan of the Pikmin games. Those are always really, really terrific and fun games to play. I can probably fit a couple more up there. If you're looking for, if you haven't played Pikmin games, and all Pikmin games since the beginning of time are now available on the Switch. So it would be a really great time to get into those. Will this fit in here? No. Will it fit in here? Yeah, but let's start to reorient these shelves. I'm sure this is so exciting for everybody to see, is me organizing now. This is probably really great entertainment for people. But I'm really glad that I'm doing this. I'm glad you guys are hanging out with me. I'm sorry that I keep not facing everyone while I'm working, but that's kind of have to be a little bit about how this goes. Does this? Perfect. So that actually works out really well. On these top shelves, I have like an adhesive foam strip so that they don't get pushed back. I don't have any of that right now, so these are just going to have to be a thing of having them get pushed back a little bit. I'll have to get back around to fixing that some other day. But what else is going on? Is anybody else working on a project they've been meaning to get to? Are we body doubling with anyone out there in the world right now? Because sometimes that's what's best for me when I'm trying to get something done I've been meaning to get done for a long time. Oh boy. Hold on, I'm going to go back and have a look at that chat in just one more second. Let's see. Not hearing from anybody yet. Well, let me know. Oh, Fred Undead said the DS store is shut down. Well, so if you don't already have the Pokebank and Poketransfer, then I guess your time to do that is over. But those apps still work. At least that's what Nintendo said they would. So if you have them and you've got games, I should do a video series because I've done this many times about how to transfer from your Game Boy Advance games all the way up to your Switch. I've got some Pokemon on my Switch that are like 20 years old or older even. Okay, so Switch games are done. Yeah, let's look around for a second and make sure I'm not missing any. But I think we got all the Switch games where they're supposed to be. Yes. Yes. Looks like it. We got room for a couple extras if we uncover any later. Let's put maybe this like this. Why not? And then what else can go right there? Why don't we start doing our Famicom games again? It's like this. Yeah, so what else has been going on life-wise? Everybody's got ups and downs. For sure. I'm feeling a little bit better the last couple days, I think, than I have been. That's a good sign. So I'm happy to report that for anybody that's been keeping score. I took a sick day from work today because I just needed some time to just kind of recharge, rejuvenate, whatever. So I did. We probably... do I have a question to read? Let's see. As he disappears again. Where was the thing? I don't really have any questions to read. That's okay. We don't need to. I hope everybody's doing well. Doing well and being healthy and making healthy decisions. It's a nice place in a life to be. What is this? What's happening? Okay. Close enough. But things have been pretty chill, I think, in my world, which is a good way to keep things. A good way to keep things to be. Famicom. Oh boy. I see what I did. The little games got to go here because the big games can only fit in here. Man, it's just like playing Tetris. We know how to play Tetris. Fred Undead says, how do I get through work without ripping my hair out? Fred Undead, if I had useful advice for you in this particular situation, I feel like I would have shared it with you already. Because this has, been a difficult situation you've been in for quite a while now. I would say I had a therapist once, and I don't always know if this is realistic advice to give anybody. But I had a therapist once that said, when I was stressed about work stuff, she said, try putting it into a smaller box. And I think that's oftentimes great advice. Can you put it in a smaller box? But work takes up an awful big percentage of your life. And do you want to put the thing that you do for 40 or more hours a week into a small box? I don't know if I do. You know, that I think might be good short-term advice until either you resolve what's going on or you leave and find something that's a little bit better. But, you know, also keep in mind that work sucks. It always does, and it always has. If work was great, then they never would have invented fun. So, you know, don't necessarily get your hopes too high up about finding a job that isn't challenging or difficult in some capacity or another, because all jobs are like that, because work sucks. That's probably not the advice you wanted. But that's what I would say, though, is, you know, you need to decide, are things going to get better? Do you want to commit to working to make things better, or do you want to leave? Either one of those things is going to take a while. So in the meantime, put it in a small box. Yeah, work used to be great, but then they internally restructured. Jugsy says simply re-unstructure. Yeah, tell them just go back to the way things used to be. They'll be totally open to hearing that, I'm sure. But I know that stinks, and if anyone from home hasn't been able to put two and two together, Fred and Dad and I are married, and we live together, of course. And work has been a very stressful experience for her for quite a while, unfortunately. And there's not a whole lot of really great solutions to this problem, short of packing up and finding something else, I guess. But, you know, that's easier said than done. Especially when you've got insurance and you've invested in your career in this really specific way, that's not a thing that most people want to or are even able to do. So it's no fun. Jugsy says dissenters / agitators make the world for real. Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing I'll say about that, Jugsy, is when you have a kid and you have a husband who's disabled, that taking risks like that gets a little bit harder to do. But, be the change you want to see in the world, right? Maybe there is a way to make them see that they should change and do better. Okay, next we're going to do our NES games. And we're going to stack them like this. Now, here's another thing while we're talking about organization. I'm a big fan of first order access. First order access, if you're unfamiliar, is when you can access any item without having to move something else. And that's not really realistic for what I got going on here. So we're just not going to have first order access, which is, sad, but sometimes Can I get a... Well, no. Sometimes that's the way it is. There's no first order access for us. Yeah, Jugsy, with union support, of course. Unions, in the States aren't as commonplace as they once were / should be. So most of us, including both me and Fred Undead, don't have a union, don't have a union representation, unfortunately. My old alma mater, the Apple store, not any store that I've worked at before, but one that's not too far from where we live, is going on strike. They just voted to strike, which I think is really cool. And I'd like to find some way to support them if I can, because I am for that. I have to get over here, excuse me. Pardon me. Boy. Recent pickup. I got Dragon Warrior and Silver Surfer for the Nintendo. That Silver Surfer game is really great. I will also be streaming that sometime soon. So is that all there is in the world of NES? Yes. Yes, it is. That's good advice, Jugsy. Jugsy says there are plenty of generic unions if there is not local specific one. Good first step. What was I going to say? Now we're going to do Super Nintendo. And I really would like to get, they make all of these like slot loading holders for these that I should probably invest in someday. Because that would make things look a lot nicer. And right there. Super Famicom can go in here. Can't see what those games are, but that is that. And I can put my disk system games in there too. Well, if I get 2 more NES games, I won't have room to put them, but that is a problem for another day. Is one of the things that kind of stinks about the Nintendo 64 games is they only have a label on the front. They don't have anything on the top. So when you store them like this, you can't really see what you got, which is too bad. But it is what it is, as they say. Okay. What next? Let's start with our DS games now. I think it's the next step in our journey. Switch game. Fred Undead says, my coworkers and I all got very close and often joke we were union-y. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that'll scare management straight is the threat of joining a union or starting one, because they don't like that. I'm just sitting here on the floor on my knees and you can't see anything. Hold on, can I lower this a little bit just so I'm still part of the thing. It's a little bit better. Has anybody been watching or reading or listening to anything good lately? Fred Undead and I have been binging the Orville, which I am endlessly surprised by how good it is. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see it, but it kind of starts off as being like a parody of Star Trek, and then it just kind of over time gradually becomes just really good Star Trek. I'm assuming on purpose, but maybe it was an accident. I don't know. But I really been enjoying that show. I'm not generally a big Seth MacFarlane fan. I think his humor's a little mean spirited, but he's doing a great job on the Orville for sure. If you like Star Trek and want to particularly like DS9, I'm sorry, Next Generation Star Trek, the Orville just feels very frequently a lot like that show. In the best possible way for me to mean that. But it definitely, the first few episodes are definitely them kind of poking fun. And then they decide to be serious about it, and they do a really, really good job at that. So let's shift this up. This is hardly a show anymore, everybody, but I'm going to keep working because I'm getting work done. But let me know. Actually, I'm going to bring this is what I'm going to do. Excuse me, everybody, if you get motion sickness. Let's bring this down to the floor, just so you can still see me. And I'm going to bring my iPad where I can see it so we can still kind of be engaged while I'm working. What if we put this here? And I bring this over here. We're doing it live. One moment, please. Sorry if that made anybody wanna vom. There. Whew, here we go. Look at that. Yeah. Jugsy says, Lego spotted. Yeah, there's a couple. We're not like Fred Undead and I aren't like giant Lego enthusiasts, but we've been known to listen to records and put together a set occasionally from time to time. I get that right. So then can we question of the day. Where did I... Here they are. You know, that's a good point. I haven't, now that I'm a little bit more familiar with spotting fake Game Boy games, I haven't looked, because these are all pretty valuable. I haven't looked to see, these all look legit to me. It'd be real sad if one of these was fake. No, that looks okay. Game Boy Advance games are, especially Pokemon ones, are often counterfeited. I don't know why people do that, but they are. And you have to have a little bit of a trained eye to spot the fake ones. And these all look good to me. I bought these many years ago before they were super expensive, so that probably means before people were counterfeiting them. And I wanted to double check. Okay, so how many of these should we do? I'm putting up new shelves. Jugsy says it's a great show. Are you talking about the Orville? Yeah. Yeah, I really like it a lot. I think that's right. What else are people watching, though? What else you got going on? Oh, Jugsy says you're talking about this stream. Well, thanks, Jugsy. Jugsy's always big supporter of the show, and I always really appreciate that. I'm having fun, and this might not be the most dynamic show of all time, but I'm getting stuff done, and that always feels good to get things done. Oh, speaking of games that are too expensive to buy, but there are other ways to play them, is you can just get Chrono Trigger for the DS. That's much easier to get than spending $400 for it on the Super Nintendo. Maybe that is the way that I will finally play that game, because I've never played it before. Okay. Is that all the DSs? Oh, here's another movie, by the way. Here's a movie recommendation for everybody. The Great War of Archimedes. It's directed by the guy that did Godzilla -1, which was so good. And it's about World War II Japan, a small number of people that were trying to stop them from making a really disastrous decision. And they're obviously unsuccessful. But it's a really good movie. If you like history, if you like Japanese stuff, it's a good one. Okay, so what is next? We've got our... Can we get all of our Wii games in here, I wonder? We sure can. And we did it. Yay. Why don't we add in another shelf here, and we can put our GameCube games there, since we're on a Nintendo kick. Jugsy says, my current watch list, Modern Planet of the Apes, ready for the new one. Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Bullet Train, haven't seen Bullet Train. A naughty movie called Love, Late Night with the Devil. Wait, there's a movie called Love that's naughty. That sounds interesting to me. I've never heard of that. I really want to see Late Night with the Devil. Is that on Shudder? Because we don't have Shudder anymore. But I would really like to see that. Let's talk about Planet of the Apes. We saw the new one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, on, what was it, Saturday. And I really liked it a lot. A lot happens in that movie. There's a lot of like stress and kind of like loss. It's kind of not like torture porn isn't the right way, but it's just kind of a bleak watch. But it ends on kind of an optimistic note, and I think it does a lot of really cool referential stuff to the original movies from the 60s and 70s. Oh yeah, Gasper Noé. Yeah, Fred Undead's not a fan. Unsimulated sex, amongst other things. Yeah. If we're talking about movies that have unsimulated sex in them, have you ever seen... this is a movie that I actually think is really good, regardless of the simulated or unsimulated sex, is... 9 Songs. You ever see 9 Songs? It's almost like a concert. It's a concert movie. It's like people that are in, a man and a woman that are in a romantic relationship. And where did the king? Oh, they're here. But they go to see music all the time. They go see a lot of live concerts. And so there's all these really great, like early 2000s or late 90s indie bands that they go see, like the Dandy Warhols are in it. And it's really great in that way. But then in between the music is they're having unsimulated sex. Jugsy says, self-insert into sexy, sex times always raises an eyebrow. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's who we are. That's who I am, at least, for better or for worse. That always gets me to stop and talk about something else. Ooh, how many dots down is this? It's that one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, it's a really good, I mean, kind of gimmick to get people to go out of their way to see a movie, is to tell people that there's going to be real IRL intercourse in it. It's a good marketing strategy. Sometimes you got to shock people to get them to pay attention to the story that you actually want to tell them, I think. I worked on a production of this play when I was in college. No, I didn't do any of that right. Called Big Love. And the play begins with a woman walking from the back of the audience onto the stage, and she's in a wedding dress and takes her clothes off. And so the play begins with this nude scene of her taking her clothes off and getting into a bathtub. And totally not necessary, but it does kind of shock people into paying attention to the rest. You know, it's like a spoonful of sugar. Sometimes you gotta titillate people to get them to pay attention to the actual story and the moral quandary you want them to focus on. Now, after all of that, I did it wrong. I got to go back and do it again. Yeah, I haven't seen most of those movies, but I know that Fred Undead is not a fan. Is that the guy that did Fred Undead? Is that the guy that did what was that movie called? Climax, about the dancers and they all accidentally do drugs and then it turns into like a horror movie? Because I didn't care for that movie at all. Is that the same guy that did that? I'm going to turn around and look for your answer in just a second. She says yes. Yeah, that movie made me immensely uncomfortable. And like, they rate movies to be like, this movie contains violence or this movie contains drug use. They really need to rate movies and like, this movie contains a kid that gets hurt. Because I don't want to see that. I'm not at a point in my life where I can look at things like that. And I need to be warned in advance. Okay, well that is all Nintendo, more or less, that I have. So let's switch over and let's work on the next console. Except here's another DS game. And here's another Switch game. Now everyone's going to see my butt when I stand up like that. Oh boy, I wish that I could just stop doing this now because I don't want to do this anymore. But I can't leave this mess. I'm not going to be able to sleep if I don't finish this. I don't like leaving a giant mess like this. Okay, so next, let's get into our Sega life. Well, wait, we have boxed Game Boy games that we can put here. And here, we'll just put these back. This is a fine place to keep everything. Okay, Sega. Let's collect all of the Sega things together so they are close to us. Jugsy says, proud of your progress and dedication, Jerem. You can do it. Thank you, Jugsy. I appreciate it. Sega. Including, oh my gosh, including Sega Saturn and Master System, Sega Saturn, We're going to do it, everybody. We're going to do it. Normally, we wrap the show up at 11, but I'm going to keep going at least until this is a little bit less of a madhouse down here. All right. Sega. Okay. Sega in Italian is slang for something specific, so it makes me laugh every time I hear it. Well, what is it slang for, Fred Undead? Tell us. Let's add another shelf here too. Do the roll dice move? Oh, I see. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm actually, just because I'm sitting on the floor, I'm not actually looking at Twitch. I'm just looking at the comments that come in through my streaming app. So if something's filtering anybody out, I'm not going to see it. Just so that you know. That's funny and unfortunate. Well, what did they call, because the Mega Drive and the Master System were really popular there, right? So what did they call that? Did they call it Sega and everyone just like giggled? So they just called it the Sega Mega Drive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't actually have, I don't think, any Mega Drive games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Mega Drive was what they called the Genesis outside of North America. Jugsy, do you know where you're from? Did you have the Genesis or did you have the Mega Drive for Sega's 16-bit offering? Because I'm assuming that you had a Mega Drive there as well. Is this gonna fit in here? Sure does. And then these two. Perfect. Jugsy says, but I got most of my consoles from secondhand markets my dad was at, so could have had all sorts. Yeah, that's a good point. Seems to remember both, Jugsy says. Yeah, that's interesting. There was some kind of trademark or copyright problem where they weren't allowed to call it the Mega Drive in the U.S., so that's why we got the Genesis, but then everybody else got was called the Mega Drive in the world. Good enough. And, well, wait a minute. Oh, I don't think that is good enough. Not gonna fit, but I can do this. And I can do this. And then we can do this. And Dreamcast is also Sega. So Dreamcast. And we'll just put the Dreamcast and the Saturn games together for now. No, we're not going to do that. All right. Making progress. That is Sega. And then we can do TurboGrafx 16 and PlayStation 1 can go together here. Now, one thing that I have not brought over is my Atari games. So I'm going to go grab those. Sit tight, everybody. Here I come. Okay. Why don't we put our Atari games at the very bottom here? Let's see if I come across anything here that's particularly cool looking. I will let you know. Classic 2600 Pitfall. It's a pretty good game. It's like almost like a Metroidvania, you know, really open-ended platformer. Infamous E.T. Almost unplayable. That was kind of a disaster for Atari. Yar's Revenge is a good kind of arcade shooting game. We got Donkey Kong. We got Venture. I don't know what Venture is. Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 is a bit of a mess, but it's definitely Pac-Man. No one's going to play that and think that it's something else. Very rudimentary, but then you got games that work perfectly for that, like Centipede, for example. Centipede's the type of game that's perfect for something like an Atari. You don't need a lot of graphics. Am I missing something? Because where's Adventure? I know that I have Adventure. It's around here somewhere. Okay. There is that. I feel like I'm missing some of those Atari games, though, but I don't know where they could be. So we're just going to have to do our best. Okay, so next we need to get our PS4 and PS5 games in order, and then that's kind of it. That's kind of it, as they say. Who says? I don't know. And there's another Atari game somewhere that I took out, and I don't know where it is. Okay. PlayStation. Let's start with PlayStation 3. Now, that is another game system that I have a lot of games for. If you can see, these are our PlayStation 3 games. Have no way of playing them because we don't have a PlayStation 3 that can play them. So something else that needs to be resolved someday, somehow. Am I going to have room? We'll figure it out. And then we'll just switch right into PS4 here. PS4. So many PS4 games. Here, let's get this up a little bit again. what if we do our TurboGrafx 16 games down here, and then we can put our PS4 games here. I'm sorry, PS3 games. Right next to our PS1 games. We don't really have any PS2. All right, well, how is all this looking? We can put this here for looks. Oh, here's this. This can go back here. We're starting to look pretty good. The big thing to do is sort out the movie situation. And I think I need to take a day and get a big box and scale back, make some hard choices, you know, and see if I either want to put stuff on like eBay or just see if my local comic book shop will buy them back from me. But to do a real serious pare down, maybe even that's what we'll do next week, is we'll go through the movie collection and I'll make a keep and get rid of pile, and we'll keep what we keep and we'll get rid of what we get rid of. That sounds like a good project for next week, I think. All right, but I think that's all I got in me tonight. It's 11:08. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We're looking, let me hold this up so we can see. We're looking a lot better than we were before. We even have some space to expand, and I'm really happy about that. But we have a lot more work to do because I got to figure out, I don't think I've shown anybody, this is all the movies that I need to figure out what to do with. And I'm probably only going to keep maybe 20% of that and get rid of everything else. All right, everybody. Thanks again. Have a good night. We'll see you at the same time next week. Bye.